What's going on, guys? So this is my presentation for our EDN 319 field experience. So let's hop in. This is my introduction slide. My name is Benjamin Davies. I was placed at Jacksonville Commons Elementary School this semester. I was in a 5th grade class and I was typically there Thursdays from 7:30 to 11:30 p.m. The reason I was there so long is that I was in another class this semester that also required a field experience. This is what the school looked like. And here's kind of my regular attire for those days. Pretty business attire. We gotta look professional. All right, next we're gonna go into my placement tab. So I was placed with a teacher, a 5th grade teacher, Kimberly Siciliano, and in her classroom I was able to observe ELA, social studies, and math content areas. Okay, we're going to go into students. Her classroom had 23 students. Obviously, this was an inclusion classroom, so we had EC students and general ed students. The females outnumbered the males pretty good. There were about 15 females and 8 males, all ranging in ethnicity, Caucasian, African American, Hispanic, Asian. And they were typically between the ages of 10 and 11. It was a great classroom, very diverse, and I really enjoyed this semester. All right, next we're going to go into classroom management. Ms. Siciliano has a classroom management system built around rewarding positive behavior, building rapport and respect for authority. When asked to define her system, she responded with authoritative, safe, risk-free, inclusive. Mrs. Siciliano works hard from the very first day of class to earn the respect of her students. And by doing so, she makes correcting behavioral issues much simpler. Because they respect her, she's able to draw their attention to the fact that their behavior is unacceptable without reprimanding them openly. Now we're going to go into the rules. Here's just a little picture that I snagged from the classroom, some simple classroom rules, listening bodies. This had to do with, your positioning, how you're sitting in your seat. If you were slouching, and lots of you were slouching in the class, she would say the word slant, and that meant to, correct yourself and correct your position. And then other things, raised hands, quiet mouths, walking feet, helping hands, and carrying hearts. Her procedures, she had hand signals for things like using the bathroom, getting water, asking for help. Students were able to flex seat. She did this because some of her students had ADHD, so being trapped in that seat for too long was distracting to them. So as long as they weren't distracting others, they were able to get up and move about the classroom if they needed to. She used Ask Three Then Me, where students, when seeking help, would ask some of their peers first. She did, excuse me, voice level 0 when transitioning, when the teacher is speaking, when working individually. And she also did this thing for her EC students called Take a Minute. With certain students, she'd be able to see that they were getting frustrated, and before it kind of got to the spilling point, I guess, she would say, take a minute. And that was their cue to go out into the hall and to just calm down, to refocus, and then come back into the classroom. So because Mrs. Siciliano's class is an inclusion class consisting of both Gen Ed students and EC students, she has to alter how she handles some of her students at times. She still uses an authoritative approach. However, with her EC students, it tends to be more coming alongside them to help them correct the behavior. With these students, she also has more specific to them options, such as allowing them to go back to the EC classroom for a short time to collect themselves, or having Mrs. Thomas, an EC teacher who co-teaches with her, handle the situation. All right, now we're going to go into specific instruction. Mrs. Siciliano has to modify her instruction slightly while working with her EC and below grade level students. The example you will see on the next slide is a passage reading and an activity that she does guided with those students. In my observations, her actual teaching method and styles don't change at all that much. It's more so that she breaks things down into smaller, easier to comprehend pieces, and instead of being fifth grade material, it's often 3rd or even 2nd grade. This is some of that modified work. These are the worksheets that she does with them. And this one here is for her below grade level and her EC students, because this is more at a 3rd grade reading level. Much of Mrs. Siciliano's classwork is done on the students' computers, and so when it comes to specifically designed instruction, she's able to upload specifically designed instructions for some of her EC and below grade level students. This is where it's done. It's all on the computer. She assigns work to each individual student based on their individual ability. Much like we saw with the worksheet, her EC and below grade level students receive assignments that are at a lower grade level and broken down into smaller, more manageable steps for them. One thing, an accommodation that she has that I really thought was cool were these desk bands for students with ADHD. I actually got to see them work, basically, in one of her students that has really bad ADHD, and so you would see that rubber band just moving and his feet bobbing, but he'd be hard at work. It was really cool. Next, we're going to move into teaching strategies. So one thing she did was stations. She'd divide her students into groups that would rotate every 20 minutes, and during this time, 3 of the groups would be working on assignments that Mrs. Siciliano had uploaded for them, while the 4th group would be receiving teacher-led instruction. This is where things like that worksheet that we saw previously would be done. So this is some of her procedural stuff, hand signals for restroom, tissues, water, comments, questions. And her classroom management checklist, she really hit a lot of the nails on the head. There were only a few things that she didn't implement. And you can check those out here at that link. So as far as reflection goes, prior to this field experience, I had a good amount of experience in EC classrooms as a substitute teacher. But this has been my first time in an inclusion classroom, and my first impressions were all positive. I feel that this field experience has only reinforced my belief that it's good for EC students to spend some or all of their day in gen ed classrooms. I think that it's a way of helping them to reach their highest academic potential. It also shows them that they can do it. You see, challenges are good for all people, and that includes people who have a disability. I loved my experience with Mrs. Siciliano's class and learned more from her in her class than I have in any other field experience thus far. So the questions that this kind of brought up to me, though, are what other areas can those special needs be integrated into, or those with special needs be integrated into? What role does technology play in this? How do we develop even better co-teaching strategies and relationships? And what does this look like when it comes to extracurricular activities? These things I will use in my classroom are her stations, teacher-led groups, the take-a-minute strategy, PBLs, which is project-based learning. I just watched the kids get so excited about that and just dive into it. A management system that's built on respect and building rapport, desk bands if they're needed, and clear communication and planning with my EC co-teacher. Clearly posted and defined rules and procedures are also super critical. Overall, I learned a great deal in this semester. I was fortunate enough to have such an amazing teacher in Mrs. Siciliano and co-teacher in Mrs. Thomas. Honestly, this has been one of the best field experiences I've had. I've learned a lot. I've had my beliefs in integrating students with special needs into gen ed classrooms just reinforced and confirmed, and I'm really looking forward to the time that I get into my own classroom and I can start implementing some of these things there as well. I hope you guys enjoyed my presentation, and I look forward to hearing from you and checking yours out also.